Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 photos that prove Japan is not like any other country. So, we all know that Japan is very different to other countries. This can be seen in their inventions, products, and food. But here are some things in daily Japanese life which are very different to how we live. From doing things much better to genius ideas, let's check out these photos. But first, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too? Coming in at number 10, we have expectation versus reality. So we all know that food looks amazing on packaging and adverts. Advertisers do their best to trick us into buying a bunch of stuff. But of course, advertisers are full of tricks. For example, if you walk into a McDonald's and look at the adverts, the Big Macs look like this. But then when you come to order one, it looks more like this. Now, of course, the image they show you is photoshopped very heavily. And I'm sure that 90% of us have never seen expectation meet reality. Well, one day in Japan, somebody went into their local Starbucks. They were going to get their regular Starbucks coffee until they saw an advert for American cherry pie. This was one of those crazy frappuccino drinks that Starbucks makes. Now, on the image, it looks seriously delicious, almost too good to be true. But if we saw this in the USA, we'd know that it would be nothing like the real product. Well, in Japan, it seems expectation meets reality, as this is what the guy got. As you can see, his drink is exactly like it is in the advert. It almost looks like his drink was the one photographed. I'd like to go to Japan just to try an American cherry pie frappuccino. That is something they seriously need to make worldwide. Next up is canals. So in your city there's likely canals. Canals are used to channel water all around the city. Of course, Japan have lots of canals too, except they're slightly different. It sounds crazy, but in Japanese drainage canals, there are koi fish living in them. That's right, the draining canals in Japan are actually clean enough for fish to live inside them. I have to say this is pretty amazing and makes the whole town look much more beautiful. Just imagine how tranquil it would be driving to work and seeing koi fish swimming by your side. These fish are all kinds of different colours and sizes. And I have to say this is like one big roadside aquarium. I see lots of animals on my way to work too, except they're all dead on the side of the road. Next up is ATM holders. So when it comes to ATMs, we need both hands. One to insert our card and press the buttons, and the other to cover up our PIN. But what about if you don't have two spare hands? Well, in Japan, they got you covered. Did you know that Japan has a very aging population? In fact, Japan has the most aging population out of any country on Earth. That is why next to every ATM is a cane holder. This way, elderly people can store their canes while using the ATMs. But if you're younger and think this is pointless, then don't worry. As well as a cane holder, there's also a drinks holder. So imagine if you have a cup of coffee or a soft drink, you can hold it in this holder. I have to say this is so genius and incredibly useful, and it's very considerate of Japan to do this for their aging population. The Japanese are known for taking care of their elders, and this simply proves it. Next up is hospital meals. So nobody likes going to hospital. Obviously the main reason why is because you're likely injured. But another bad thing about hospitals is their food. Hospital meals are known for being terrible. But one day a woman posted online saying, "I recently gave birth in Japan. Here is some of the food I ate." As you can see on the screen right now, here are some photos of the food they gave her in hospital. Now remember, this isn't a very special or fancy hospital. She was simply giving birth, not having a major operation. But nevertheless, she was given gourmet style meals. Just look at the kind of food she got. Take this dessert for example, it looks gourmet made. I didn't realize Gordon Ramsay had began working at hospitals. I'm sure this is much better than any hospital food you've ever seen. Come to think of it, this is better than most restaurants. The reason why they do this in Japanese hospitals is they believe that food is a big part of getting better. They say that having enough to eat and having a balanced diet will get you back on your feet in no time. And I have to say, they're probably right. Nobody likes going to hospital, but the one condolence to going to a Japanese hospital is getting amazing meals. In the UK, all you get is toast. Although it is pretty darn good toast. In America, the hospital meals are known for being very bad. But in America, you have to pay for healthcare. However, in Japan, healthcare is actually free, and that includes these meals. I'm sure any Americans watching are pretty envious of Japan right now, and I don't blame you. Next up is Braille cans. So from this list, it's clear that Japan is very considerate. They think of people who we may forget, for example, the elderly. But another group of people who Japan think of is the blind. Obviously, being blind is very hard. Just imagine not being able to see anything. You wouldn't be able to do many basic things like pick out your favorite drink at a store. But in Japan, you would be able to do that. That is because in Japan, drinks cans have their names written on them in Braille on the top. As far as I know, this isn't the case in any other country. Blind people usually have to ask a store worker for assistance. But in Japan, they get their independence back and can simply feel the Braille to find their drink. And this isn't just on drinks. In fact, everywhere in Japan is totally blind friendly. But remember, this isn't just one drink brand. In Japan, it's actually the law that every drink must have their name written on them in Braille on the top. I have to say this is a genius thing which I think they should implement all over the place. It's hardly difficult for billion-dollar companies to incorporate this, so I think Japan is making a great rule here. Next up is 3D menus. When you pass by a restaurant, you likely have no way of knowing what they serve. Often you have to go in and browse through a paper menu. Now, sometimes menus have pictures and that can be helpful. But when a menu doesn't even have any pictures, sometimes it's hard to tell what you want. Well, in Japan, this is not a problem. You can actually tell exactly what a restaurant has from outside the restaurant. But not only that, you can tell what it looks like and how big it is. How do you do this, you may be asking? Well, it's simple. Restaurants in Japan actually display fake food that looks just like the real ones from their menu. They also have what it is written next to it and a description. But how amazing is it that they have fake food as the menu? This way you can know exactly what you're getting and order exactly what you want. You don't have to second guess a thing. And you also don't have to go into the restaurant to find out what they serve. They simply display it right in their window. One Japanese forum user even said that when they were a kid, they used to think it was real food. I have to say the foods in these windows do look very realistic. But I honestly think this is an amazing idea that every restaurant around the world should start doing. Next up is bathroom info. So there's nothing worse than walking into a public toilet and seeing that they've all been taken up. It means you either have to awkwardly wait around or you have to leave the toilet. Well, in Japan, they have a system to make sure this never happens, and it's all here on this screen. This may look like a game of Tetris to the untrained eye, but look closely. You'll realize this is an electronic map of the toilets. All of the pink toilets are occupied, but all of the blue ones are vacant. This lets you know exactly how many toilets are open and where they are. I have to say this is a genius idea. This is just another example of Japanese efficiency which is mind-blowing. Did you know that Japan was voted one of the most efficient countries on Earth? With inventions like this, I can really see why. I think they should implement this in every toilet. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it does. And also in Japanese toilets, you get a proper door. If you live outside of the USA, this may sound normal, but in the USA, you can literally see into some public toilets. So I really think the next country to have this invention should be America. Next up is gum paper. So when you look at the streets of your city, what do you see? Chances are you see lots of coloured circles on the ground. Well, in case you didn't know, these are actually people's gum that they've spat out onto the ground. It's pretty gross, but it's true. Now, of course, every city encourages people to put their gum in the trash, but some people don't do this. Sometimes it's out of laziness, but sometimes people don't have any paper for their gum. Well, in Japan, this is not an issue. That is because Japanese gum comes with small pieces of paper inside. This way you can spit your gum into it when you've finished. And that's why when you look at a Japanese street, you won't see any gum on the ground. Some countries like Singapore actually impose prison sentences on people who bring gum into the country. But in Japan, there's no need for this. They simply came up with this amazing idea. I think this should be the law everywhere, as it would make cities look way cleaner. Next up is mint pick. So while we're on the subject of minty fresh things, why not have a look at Japanese toothpicks? So when you go to a restaurant, sometimes they give you a toothpick after your meal. We all know that toothpicks are simply sharp wooden sticks, right? Well, in Japan, they go above and beyond. Somebody realized that every toothpick in Japan had a green tip. At first they thought it was dirty or something, but they soon realized it was simply a mint-coated tip. That's right, the tips of toothpicks in Japan are actually coated with mint. This gives a much better taste in your mouth than simply wood, and it also freshens up your teeth and breath. I think we should get rid of regular toothpicks and just use these. Now, you may have seen these in other countries, and they do have these in certain restaurants around the world. But did you know that these were actually invented in Japan and are super popular there? More restaurants in Japan have mint toothpicks than regular ones. And to be honest, I think that should be an industry standard, as these seem amazing. Have you guys ever had a mint toothpick before? And if so, was it in Japan? Next up is bus strikes. So sometimes on buses around the world, strikes can happen. Now, you may support the strikes. I mean, bus drivers should be paid a good amount, right? But no matter whether people support the strikes or not, they're usually very annoyed. That is because bus drivers usually don't show up to work during strikes, so you miss your bus. This can cause people to not be able to get into work, and worse. Well, in Japan, bus drivers do strike, only in a different, better way. Bus drivers in Japan actually continue going into work and driving their routes. This way people still get to where they need to be, but you may be wondering, how is this a strike? Well, while the bus drivers do continue taking people to where they need to go, they refuse to take fares. That's right, they give everyone free travel so the bus companies make no money. This way they're still on strike and can get their message across. The bus drivers keep Japan on time, but they also cost the bus money's gas company on top of lost revenue. I think the entire world should protest like this. It's an awesome way to get your message across. And also the public's way more likely to support you as you're not inconveniencing them. Next up is rain warning. How annoying is it when you step out of your elevator to leave your office and then you see it's raining? Then you have to take the elevator all the way back up to the top floor to get your umbrella. Well, in Japan, this is not a problem. That's right, they've come up with a solution for this as well. Elevators in Japan actually have an umbrella sign that lights up if it's raining. This way people know whether to take an umbrella down to the elevator with them. This must save a lot of unnecessary trips back up and forth to your office. It rains a lot in Japan, so this is a fantastic invention. It really does seem like Japan is working on solving all of the world's little problems. You guys have anything like this in your buildings? And if not, would you want to have one? Next up is school cleaning. So from this list it should be pretty obvious that Japan is very respectful, and one of the ways they teach respect is by order and cleanliness. But how do Japanese citizens learn this? Well, they learn it at school at a very young age. If you think about who cleans your school, it's likely the janitor. But in Japan, did you know that most schools don't even have janitors? But somehow Japanese schools are still incredibly clean. Well, this is because the kids are the janitors. That's right, the people who go to the schools in Japan clean them. This way people make a lot less mess, seeing as it's them cleaning it up. And while in most countries kids wouldn't like this, in Japan they love it and see it as a vital part of life. I think some schools around the world could really take some tips from Japan. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the most amazing photo from Japan. I think it's the hospital meals, as they were absolutely amazing. If you want more amazing videos, then check out my second channel. There'll be a link to that on screen right now. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.